Hello and a very warm welcome to the old shop. I think I was probably sitting here by the fire at the beginning of the last video, but I'm recording it in the evening and got the fire alight because it's really nice and cosy to have it, even though we're actually still having some quite unseasonably warm weather for very late October now. So I just thought I would let you know why I've made another video right now, particularly as it's not very long till Hallowtide, All Hallows, Halloween, Samhain, All Souls, All Saints, or the other way around actually, All Saints, All Souls, all those festivals, which are, some of them are the same as each other, and some of them are not the same thing, but they are all take place over a couple of days really at the end of this week. So I'd like to make another video then, but last one I did videoing of the back garden, which I did ramble on a bit about, and I had also done some video over in Crowwood to show you the autumn colours and just how it's all developing down there. And really the video just got too long, so I cut it in half and took out the Crowwood section, and now it's 10 days or something later and really everything's changed again. So I decided to record it again, and I went down yesterday, so it's yesterday's conditions, how they were yesterday. It was actually a really lovely day. By the time I went down there, it was getting a little bit, the day was kind of losing it a bit, but you'll see if you'd like to keep going and have a look later on in the video. And the other thing I've done is I've just shown you the front garden, because just to balance out the back garden really, and also there's been quite a lot of change in the front garden, and we've cut down the holly hedge quite a bit, so there's more light coming in, and I've done a bit more today even to try to get it ready for the winter, I suppose you'd say. But anyway, it's looking a bit better, I think. So I thought you might like to see that as well. And there's one or two other bits and pieces as well, things that have been going on here. And one thing I really am really excited to show you is that one morning, not long ago, I went down to the sea and I actually caught the sunrise itself. We're really lucky here because the beaches here face east or northeast, so we actually see the sun rising directly over the sea, which you don't in that many places. It's really beautiful when it comes out just from the horizon line, and I just was there at the right time and parked the van, got out, had a look across, and I was just in time to see the first little tiny rosy tiny one, not even semicircle, like a little segment, and the sun rose and it was really lovely. So I've put a few photographs of that in as well. But anyway, I hope you'll enjoy it all, and I will be back in the not too distant future because these festivals are coming up, and it's one of my favourite times of the year, and I know I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of other people really love this time of year as well. So look forward to seeing you then, and I hope you'll enjoy this one now. Thank you for your company. It's such a beautiful late afternoon, and it is late afternoon now because the clock's just changed. Today's the first day of the clock change, and so what was mid-afternoon before has suddenly become late afternoon. So it's going to be quite a change from now onwards. But there's also a change, as you can probably see, in the colours in the lane, because the trees really are starting to change colour now. Well, I think I've already left it a bit longer than I should have done, which just shows how easy it is to get caught out because the sun's already quite low. But we'll have a look and see anyway. So I'm just following along the path, which is now littered with lots and lots more fallen leaves. I'm actually starting to rustle in them now. I don't know if you can hear the rustling under my feet. And the bracken has gone down a lot since I was here last, which I'll just put the camera across and you'll be able to see there is a little bit of nice light going across there, just between the trees there. Just as I set off down the lane from the old shop, I saw a little tiny muntjac run across just into the garden next door but one. So that was really lovely, but I had no chance of capturing him or her on the video, unfortunately, but it was a lovely sight because it was very, very close by. You start to notice these meshes of honeysuckle vine here a lot more in the winter, but you also see that already new little leaves have come. This always happens, ready for next year, and they happen before it was not even the end of October yet. So I think that's really interesting. It really gives you a sense that of one of those kind of lessons, I suppose, that from the dead vines comes the new life before the old life is even really finished, which I think is very beautiful. In some places the bracken is already completely this kind of, I never know what to call this colour, it's a sort of tawny colour. Have you got a better name for it? I'm not quite sure what I'd call it. It's not really brown, it's not really orange, it's not really amber. Tawny, we'll stick with tawny. When there's a little bit of light like this, it always makes the hollies, you can see in front of us here, there's lots of hollies in this wood, and you can see how the leaves really glisten in the sunshine, especially the low sunshine, I think. It's always really nice making your way between the trees and down to the end of the wood, partly because it does twist and turn the path, so you can never see very far ahead of you, so you never know quite what's round the corner, or which of the fair folk might be playing round the corner as well. It's a very, very autumny kind of sight here, and you can probably see all these honeysuckle vines hanging down, and again you can see this new fresh growth on it, or little clusters of leaves. It's really, really beautiful. The light is definitely starting to go as we walk through this tunnel of holly. It's always quite dark in here, but you do get this sparkle sometimes, which I can just sense now. The sun has just got very, very low. We might come out into it again when we get further down. We're going through more holly now. It's almost like an arch that's been created, but it's just happened because of the holly trees growing like this, and they have been cut back a bit, I think, when they've gone over the path, but that's created these rather magical arches. There's another one coming up. Yes, we've come out into slightly more sparkly light here. You can see it's just coming through the trees just here, and it's making everything look really golden. And now we're down at the very lowest part of the wood near the boundary, where the stream or drainage ditch, depending on your perspective, runs across, and then there's a field, and I've seen crows massing on that field, which is partly why I've given it the name Crowwood, and partly because you do hear, probably for the same reason, you do hear the crows in here quite often. You hear, and as well as that, one time when it was really snowy, I saw myriad crow footprints. I think they were crows all dancing together. It was absolutely magical, and I think it was an old video. Whether I can find it again to link it, I'm not sure, but I might be able to. Where I took video in the snow, and you can see them. You can see the amazing patterns that their feet made, and you'd never have guessed, unless this snow had happened, you'd never have had the evidence or sort of seen what they were up to. But it just made you wonder what it would have looked like to watch them doing this. This part of the woodland where I am at the bottom here, it feels to me like a really ancient place, because it's not very often the wood that falls or the trees that fall are just left where they are. I think the wood is managed to a certain extent where the trees go across the paths, but even then they're not always, because the path just changes around the fallen trees, and this part's very boggy as well. We'll go a bit further and I'll show you where all the reeds are, and it does get flooded, and then in the winter that can then freeze, and then so you get these really, really primeval looking areas here. So here we are at the boundary, and you can see that here this is the stream, which is got water in, but it's still looking a bit, there's like a film on it still. It's not got a lot of water in, it's still got its kind of summer level. Well, sometimes it's dried up altogether, but it's certainly not full of water like it probably will be as the autumn goes on and everything becomes saturated with water again, which it probably will, depending on the kind of year it is. You can see an example here of how trees have just fallen and they're just left where they were. There's much more of that as well elsewhere. As you can probably also sense, it's a really very magical wood. It has this real fairy tale quality about it. And across here you can see what I was talking about just now. These are all reeds, and actually they're rushes, I think you'd call. These are actually rushes rather than reeds, these clumps. Or sedges maybe. And that's where it does all flood. So it's like a valley bottom would have been in prehistoric times, before they started straightening streams and making channels to drain the water away. All the valley bottoms would have been like this, and little streams would have flowed wherever they pleased, basically, and they would change. The flow of those streams would change all the time. They wouldn't be static at all. A pair of big, lovely oaks here. They're not huge. I mean, they're not ancient or anything, but they are quite sizable. You can see. I'm just going to show you up to the tops there. That's way, way, way up there. And this is a little path it's kind of raised up. So each side of it goes down with another fallen tree there, fallen birch, and all that tangle that I was showing you just now. And then on this side, so in front of me is the path I'm following here, which is like a bank, I suppose, and then you've got the water down here, and then you've got the field here, across here. And there are lots of oaks. I'd say, well, most of the trees are either oak or birch, probably a similar amount of each, and there's some hazel trees as well, and lots of hollies. Then hollies, I've noticed, always love to grow where oaks are. I don't know whether you've noticed that. If we were looking at rushes just now, or sedges, we're now looking across here at reeds, and that's the difference. You see how these reeds are with I think of them as fairy flags. All the leaves come out sideways from them. I think they're lovely. I really love them. And you get the big plumes on the top at the appropriate time of year, which will be their flowers. And the birches next here are getting to the point which I love, where the leaves are very, very sparse, and you just get one here and there, which I really like, and all the twiggy bits. And this particular birch tree always has these mushrooms on, but it seems to have more this year. Someone will know what they are. I think I know what they are, but I can't remember offhand what you call them. But there's quite a few. I think they might be edible, but I might be wrong there. I'm not going to be trying them anyway. Yes, it really is very, very much a host for these mushrooms. It's even more. I don't know whether I'll be able to see or whether you'll be able to see, but higher up you go, there's actually more right up there. Can you see them at all? They're just sticking out. All those bits sticking out are actually more mushrooms. Just here where all these branches or trunks and branches are laid down, this is where it was completely flooded last winter and early spring. We had lots and lots of rain in the spring, and these were laid down here so people could still walk across. Obviously it's dry at the moment, but it's like part of the story of the woodland, really, the fact they're still here, and they might well be needed again this year. It's already quite a little bit muddy down here, and we haven't had very much rain yet this autumn. No, I have had some, but it's not been especially wet. There must be some chestnut trees as well. You don't really notice chestnut trees, but there's some empty chestnut cases here, so there must be some somewhere, and a few little toadstools as well. Little fairy ones, I think of these very small ones. And now we're walking towards the light again because I'm basically walking west to the other corner of the wood. It's not a huge wood, but it's only part of the woodland here. There's quite a lot of woodland that's open access to walking, so which is very lovely to have, obviously right on your doorstep. But this is the far corner, and then we make our way round and back through the wood and then over the heath at the end. But I probably will just go back to the old shop and get this video ready to show you. There are lots of little scatterings of fungi, like here, little constellations among the leaves. Very small, these. I don't know what they are. I really need to learn a lot more about them. I have to get my observer's book out and have a look. Just here on the way back is a little grove. It used to feel like a little circle here of birches, but what's happened is there was a guardian hazel, a huge hazel, as hazels go. They're usually quite shrubby, but if you look at the size of this, it was absolutely huge, and it was just like a guardian at the entrance, and it came over in one of the storms we had. And that means where the footpath used to actually go through the middle of those trees, it's one of the examples of where people have gone round it and made another path, so it doesn't go through it anymore. Maybe that's better because it just keeps the energy in that circle. But anyway, that's the way it is now. So I shall follow the path that's been set. And where I'm heading towards now, which is on the way back, is when we start to go through the pine plantation, which feels very different once you get into the plantation, because the pine trees smell very different. The floor of the woodland is very different because it's just all fallen pine needles and pine cones, as you'd imagine. So when you step on them, you get this resinous smell, which very much takes me back to my childhood when we had a little touring caravan, but we had it just in one place, and it was in a pine wood with just like a clearing cut in it, really, because it was the early days of this caravan site near the sea, and so it was a little clearing in the pine woods that the caravan stood in. And that smell, always like smells do, I'm sure you've got a similar I'm sure you'll know what I mean when I say that certain scents just take you immediately back to certain places or times in your life. This birch tree, just before we get into the pine area, this is just a stump, really. It goes up to there and then stops. So you can see what happens when it really ages, the wood, and you've got the wood inside that's starting to rot away, but the bark lasts longer than the wood, and so you can see how you've got the bark clinging on. And you can, it sort of shows you as well why the bark has always been used for lots of things traditionally, especially in Scandinavia. You can make things out of birch bark, and it's got much more longevity than the actual birch wood. They do say birch wood's not very good for burning, but I have found it quite good firewood. See, this is where it starts to change underfoot, because you've got all the pine needles and the pine cones, but you've got the birch leaves as well. It's like a liminal place between the two kinds of woodland. And the scent is beginning to change already, but I actually always think when I step over this fallen tree, which isn't a pine, I don't think. Let me have a look. Oh, might be. It's gone. It's got so far gone now that I can't really be sure. But anyway, you step over it, and once you're over it, it feels as if you're now in the pine woods. The light's really very, very nice in here, and so I thought I'd just show you. It's not all pine trees. There are birches among the pines, predominantly pines, but the light in here is very low light, but it's become very sparkly again. So we're just heading to the actual entrance or exit, whichever way you want to look at it, of Crowwood now. This tree in front of us is one of the pine trees. You can see how the bark is really ridged on these pine trees. It's got a reddish colour as well. I always look for the pine resin because you can use it for incense, but I haven't found any at all yet. We're right up on the slope here, so we're going downhill to get out of the wood, and then in front of us is the lane which we'll come out onto, and then I should go across the heath and back home. I've just been doing a little bit of work in the front garden. You'd think for a little garden it would be no trouble at all, which it probably shouldn't be. But anyway, I'm just refilling the bird bath at the moment, and I'll show you what's been going on out here. So I did tell you I've been having some lovely help in the garden, and this, I don't know if I can get far enough back to show you, is the enormous pile of stuff which we've collected. Some of it's from the back hedge, a lot of it is from the front garden. You'd think for a tiny front garden you couldn't possibly have this amount of this number of clippings, but there certainly have been, and a lot of it's holly, and I'm absolutely not sure at all what's going to happen to it. I'd like to think it will be dry out enough to have a big bonfire, although it's not obvious even where to have a fire here now. But I always said that I had really needed to be able to have a fire if I was anywhere. Actually, that's one of my prerequisites, so I'm going to have to find a way of doing it. Before the trees were in the back, you can just get a glimpse across there where the trees are. It was easier because obviously the trees are a bit more of a liability when it comes to having fires. Wood and fire doesn't really go together unless you actually want to burn it, and of course I don't want to burn the little woodland down, so that's something to think about. But for now, I'm just piling it all up, and even this morning I've been collecting some more holly clippings from the front garden, and as well as that I've been cutting some more back where I've seen some straggly bits. So I'll just show you what I've been doing. So this is a very full wheelbarrow load that I've just collected. This is the second barrow load like this that I've collected this morning, and I think that I'll stop there. The thing is, you could just keep going indefinitely because you can always see more, and I think the trick is, rather than getting overwhelmed, which I have to admit I have been, the thing is just to do a little, tell yourself you'll do a few steps at a time, or just one little step at a time was good, and then it'll be fine. When I look down here, I'll see more bits of holly on the floor that I could collect, and more other things that are dying back. But part of the idea with this front garden is that, especially the seed heads, where I'll just see if I can show you something, where they haven't actually fallen down by themselves, I think I'm trying to leave them so that it's good for wildlife. That was always the idea. It's kind of fallen by the wayside slightly, I must admit, how the garden's worked out, because certain plants have been trampled down anyway, like these, that would have had good seed heads on them, or they've either been trampled down in making and cutting the hedge, which is a brilliant job, it's letting much more light in, or they've just keeled over, and where they've keeled over there's not much point in not cutting them back, so I've cut them back because I don't want it to necessarily be particularly neat, but at the same time they're not serving any purpose when they're just rotting on the ground, particularly. So that's what I've been doing. It's just a question of playing it by ear, really. And these Japanese anemone seed heads, I suppose they are seed heads. So I've left them in place because they are, not only are they attractive when it's winter time and there's nothing and all the leaves have gone, but also again they do provide a safe haven for very tiny insects to shelter in. So that's a very good thing to have them if you can. And the pond down here you can now see, which all through the summer of course was completely covered in vegetation, and I've tried to take out as many leaves as I can. That was full of holly leaves. I can still see some. As soon as you take some out, of course the others float to the top, and there will be more, and I've stirred it up by doing that, which is why it's looking very cloudy at the moment. But if I just try and keep on top of it and keep taking leaves out as I can. See the hair there? It's nice to be able to see the hair again. And as soon as I look around, I can see a lot more I could collect up. But I decided that enough's enough. Even though I'm talking to you now, so I'm collecting another bit of holly. I can see stuck in the hazel tree. In fact, there's several there. Oh dear, you know what? I'm saying I'm not going to do any more, and as soon as you see it, you can't help it. Because I think enough is enough for one session, and then more leaves and so on will come down anyway. So I'll wait and do another session again soon and do some other things in the meantime. And that, I think, is the way to deal with any feeling of overwhelm. Just tell yourself you're going to do a particular amount and no more, and just try to stick to it, which I'm going to try to do today. So all I'm going to do now is those few little bits of holly I've just seen stuck in the hazel, I'm going to put them on the barrow, take the barrow over to the pile, sweep where you can see the very autumnal looking stone circle. Well, stone circle sounds a bit grand, doesn't it? But the circle in the garden and the paving slabs. So I'm just going to sweep them and I shall call that it for this little session. I just thought you might like to see the autumny looking garden. It's not, you know, obviously colour and so on, you're not going to see any colour at the moment at all, in the slightest, but it's just interesting to see as the season goes on how everything gradually goes into the earth and then ready for next year. So this hazel is still green mostly, but you've got a leaf here turning. And it's a good time of year to sort of think about how you want things to develop for the next season as well, and whether things need taking out or cutting down at all. Definitely the holly hedge is lots and lots better, and it's letting a lot more light in. You saw all the cuttings there were on the pile. It's really has been a large amount taken off. It could probably go down further, but again, it's this step-by-step approach. So I'm just going to use my trusty little broom here to sweep up in a moment, and then I shall just call it for this session. I shall call it a day and come out another day and do a bit more. Well, I've swept up, so I'll just go in now, but I just wanted to show you that it does look better. Just a bit of sweeping has really helped. And I suppose I wanted to show you as well that it's not perfect. In fact, if I look down, I can see a bit here, swept up, and so on. But I think the thing is that I'm kind of telling myself, as well as putting it on record here, that it's much better just to do a bit and not be too pernickety about it, and then come back another day and do some more. Because for one thing, there'll be lots more leaves down yet. It's only relatively early in the autumn. It's not, there's not quite November even yet, so lots more leaves to come down, lots of green still. And beyond the garden, if I show you up here, the two big oak trees just across the road there in my neighbour's garden, they will soon be shedding their leaves, and they have lots of leaves, and lots of them will blow over here into the front garden, so there'll be plenty more clearing to do. But just for now, I'm quite pleased, really. It's just made it look a little bit less unkempt, and I think it'll be good for the plants that are remaining here not to be smothered by the holly cuttings on top of them as well. So I should just go in now and see what needs to be done next. But yeah, I'm pleased with that. I thought that everything in the vegetable garden, such as it was, had actually come to an end, and I allowed lots of the beans just to kind of wither in their pods, like those, which will be fine to save for dried beans. Probably maybe not to eat, because maybe they'll be okay to dry, but if not anyway, they'll be good to save for seed for next year, because they're very much like the ones that I saved before, and then these are actually grown the beans here, so I know that they should work. But what I have found recently, just looking across, because they're particularly brightly coloured, as you can see, these Borlotti beans, I've noticed there are some more that have come. Now, while I don't think they'd be very good fresh now, they're probably dried up a little bit, I thought if I pick them, I'll take them out of their pods, and if I soak them for a little while, maybe not for too long, but just enough to soften them a little bit, I should be able to cook them like any other beans, and it'll almost feel like an extra crop, because I thought everything had finished now. But I wanted to show you, partly because I just wanted to show you that, by being a bit neglectful as I was and letting things sit in the garden that I thought had finished, actually sometimes when perhaps when the weather conditions are just right for them, something else will happen later on, like it has here. So I'm going to pick the ones that's left, and I think there'll be a reasonably, half a colander full probably. But also I just thought the colour is so lovely. I'm a real sucker for pink, and it's so nice with the green. I thought you might like to enjoy it just from an aesthetic point of view as well. Or perhaps that's just me. Anyway, I should do that, and I should just show you how many there are in the colander when I've got all the ones that I can see. Well, there we are. That seems to be all, but I'll take them out of their pods, and I'll see what a little tiny pile it looks like when they're out of their pods. But talking about nice colours, I can't resist while we're out here next to where the beans were, just showing you the Garos, which the berries are they're shrivelling up like this, but look at the beautiful colours the leaves of Garos go. Aren't they lovely? Well, again, it's probably just me with like my pink and green combination, but they're just a real treat, full stop. And hopefully the berries are a treat for the birds as well. I know that there are some left on the bush here, but if the weather gets colder, I think they'll probably be very much welcomed by the birds in the garden, of which there seems to be quite a lot at the moment. I saw a blackbird this morning, and with a hollyberry in its beak, just in the front garden, which was nice to see. Here's the little autumn tree still going strong, and here are the beans I've just taken out of their pods. So they're still quite pretty even out of the pods. You can see the pink on them, these borlotti beans, and they were actually quite moist. It's not, as you can see, it's not made a huge quantity there, but I don't think they're going to need soaking. They're just going to need enough cooking, really. So I'm really pleased about that. It's just a little extra from the garden I didn't really think I was going to get. So yes, that's a result, I think.